everybody. Dawn Kendrick here with some good news. And the good news is that you're only going to hear good news here. I am a repurposed news reporter, and I am finally doing the stories that have been burning in my heart for so long. They're stories that uplift, encourage, and inspire, and they are real, and they're raw, and they're vulnerable. They're the good stuff stories. And we see it over and over again that through it all, through the middle of our biggest challenges, together we can, together we will. Let's go see the good and be the good. On your mark, get set, let's go. Hey, y'all, we are so looking forward to bringing you our God at Work series of stories over the next few months. We named them God at Work in honor of my mama, Marlene Kendrick, who passed away on February 23rd. Because if you knew our mama, you knew those words, God at Work. She was forever teaching us to see God in everything. So this series is for you all as much as it is for ourselves, and reminding ourselves that we can, in fact, allow God to work through us by seeing the good in others and being the good for them. Hey, y'all. It's been my experience, maybe it's been yours as well, that God works best through us when we take the next best step. So be still and know that I'm gone, but parentheses, not too still. It's like, I feel like he's saying, I'm going to need you to keep moving. What's the next best step? Whatever you're up against, can you promise me that we'll do this together, but you've got to take the next best step? Can I get an amen? Anyone listening relating to that right now? So this is why I'm so excited to introduce you to a friend of mine, Carmen Angelo, who knows firsthand the great things that can come from taking the next best step. From the really God, really moments that we find ourselves in to really God, really. And it's a candid, vulnerable, authentic story, which is where we say the best good stuff comes from. And so I want to introduce you to him so that he could share with you and inspire you through his journey through addiction, being candid and honest about it. Hi, Carmen.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, and I'm super grateful for you. I know how busy you are, producer at WTAM. Tell me about what you're doing there right now. What's new and exciting at WTAM?
Well, it's today's kind of a strange day. I hosted the morning show, Everyone's Morning News with Wills and Snyder. Bill Wills, my colleague, is on vacation, so I stepped in and tried to fill his role today. Big shoes to fill, but I was able to get it done with Mike Snyder. We were on the air from 5:00 this morning until 9:00 this afternoon, and then I had to do a couple of pieces for the Cleveland Guardians pregame show as they're getting ready to open a weekend series on Chicago's North Side against the Cubbies this afternoon. So I was a little busy with that, but you know what? Things can be a lot worse. I could be down the coal mine or in the steel mill and, doing real work. I mean, this is high school with paychecks. That's how I view it.
Exactly. And we come from, in fact, that's where our roads joined, was 22 years. I was in Cleveland as a reporter, and now I'm in St. Louis. Our regular listeners know that, but I say I'm a news reporter with a renewed purpose now, which is telling stories like yours. But you're right, to have that job, often sometimes some days I was like, thank you, God. But often the news ends up being like, really, God, again, So even more reason why I'm so grateful to reconnect with you here in this forum.
Likewise.
And it was a post that you did on Facebook that really caught my eye, of being grateful on the flip side of something that could have ended up your life, the life that you ended up forging. Will you get us started to that first beer that you drank that kind of set off this whole trajectory of really walking with God, as you said?
Yeah, it's bizarre. At the tender age of 7 years old, shortly after Christmas, my brothers and I was the youngest of three. My two older brothers were 4 and 5 years older than me, respectively. But Christmas of 1976, we got one of those slot racetracks, which were very popular back in the 70s. And my mother and father didn't want us putting it together. So my mother called over my uncle, and my uncle came over and he put it together. And when he walked into the house, he had a 6-pack of Robin Hood Cream Ale Tall Boys. And I'll never forget it. He was up in our upstairs part of our house in Fairview Park, and he was putting it together on a table in one of the empty rooms, a playroom essentially. And he had a 6-pack, and I said, "Hey, Uncle, let me grab one of those." And Don, may I be struck dead, he gave me a beer. He didn't think I was going to drink it. I walked around the corner. I drank the entire thing, and what I remember was this warm feeling came over me, and I couldn't feel my legs. And to me, it was a tremendous feeling. And I remember telling myself, and my mom and dad had no idea. My uncle had no idea I drank it. He thought maybe I wanted to play with the can. And I said, if this is what being loaded is like, sign me up. And I remember it vividly. And that was the first time, unfortunately, at the tender age of 7, which is so hard to believe, that I was under the influence of alcohol.
And then by 8th grade graduation, you had a 12-pack. We're skipping ahead here. How did that turn out?
Well, my brother had a 12-pack of Ham's beer. I'll never forget it. And my 8th grade graduation was on a Friday afternoon. Ironically, it's crazy. I mark things with different sporting events. And the day of my 8th grade graduation was the day that Rick Manning and Rick Waits got traded from the Indians to the Brewers for Gorman Thomas. And I remember listening to the radio. I found this 12-pack in our house, which was my brother's, and I decided to consume the entire thing at about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I went to my graduation, and I was hammered. 8th grade, 14 years old. I was highly inebriated, and at that point, I didn't have any idea, no idea whatsoever, Don, that I was ill. And turns out I indeed was. I was, at the tender age of 14, I was in the throes of alcoholism.
Yes, and you use the word ill, and in other interviews that said sick, and I made note of that truly it's an illness, it's a sickness. And because of examples like you, we can start, when we say, remove the stigma of mental health or remove the stigma of alcohol. You know what? It's easier said than done. But kudos to you, my friend. So transparent in your story that, in fact, is going to uplift, encourage, and inspire other people, because we say together we can, together we will. You believe that? Do you believe that in your journey where you are now?
It's so, how shall I say? Well, number one, regarding the illness part of the sickness aspect of it, I'll never forget. I'm going to fast forward to 1995. I was about 2 years sober, and I was on a flight, and I was headed to DC. I was flying in the BWI, and I remember I was in the middle seat. And again, the infancy of my sobriety, and the girl on the window ordered a whiskey sour, and the flight attendant came over and passed the whiskey sour over to her, but it went right by my nose. And to show you the illness aspect of it, Dawn, I got a whiff of that drink, and those feel-good endorphins in my brain, the dopamine just started pouring out of my brain. And I got nervous, and I was able to say no. I wanted a drink so bad, but I'll never forget that. Now, instances like that have been very few and far between. I'm not going to lie, I haven't craved a drink probably since the early 2000s. And again, it was in a setting where alcohol, reigns. I was at a college football game, and I was at a tailgate. And I remember telling myself, no, walk away, walk into the stadium. And I had a can of Copenhagen in my back pocket. And I remember reaching for the can of Copenhagen as I'm at this tailgate. And as I reached for the can of Copenhagen, I don't know how it happened, but the Lord, I swear to you, the Lord, when I reached for my back pocket, the Lord turned my body, and I saw the entrance to the stadium, and I just started walking. I don't remember making an effort to move. he physically turned me, and I walked into the stadium and I beat back the last urge that I had.
What a fantastic testimony. And it didn't come easily. I'm gonna backtrack just for a second
Sure.
because St. Ed's is a fantastic, well-known school, high school. You had the privilege of being a football player there. The team, it said, you were a defensive back, right? Made it to the playoffs junior year. This kid has everything going for him, but you ended up getting your coaches saw something before you did. And I love what you said about your coaches and your teachers, because it felt to me almost like God. They were a reflection of God, the hands and feet of Christ for you, and that, you disrespected them, but they
Oh,
saw
I was
something
a
that,
jerk. I was a
yeah,
jerk.
and they saw something in you like God. So tell me more about that.
It's funny because my mathematics teacher, Greg Urbis, helped save my life. Our front seven coach, Tim Hyland, helped save my life. These were guys that I continually disrespected. I didn't mean to do it on purpose. There was no malice, but I wasn't with the program. I wanted to do it my own way. Um, there's nothing worse than wasted talent. And Don, I wasted so much of my talent from the time I was literally 12 years old until the day I got sober, June 27th of 1993, that, you know, um, I don't, I don't regret it. I mean, I love where I am today. I wouldn't change a thing because, now today I work with kids that were in very similar situations as I was at such a young age. And, there's an old saying, you got to give it away to give it back. And, I try to stay active with kids if they need help, whether they're addicted to drugs and or alcohol. But there were so many people at St. Ed's that were there for me, and I just thumbed my nose at them, and I just wanted to do it my way. Well, guess what? At the end of the day, my way wasn't working. It was not. I was a miserable failure. I was a miserable failure athletically. I was a miserable failure academically. And above all, I was a miserable failure spiritually. I was spiritually bankrupt, but the Greg Urbises, the Tim Highlands, the Dan Barnharts, the Dan Flahertys, brother James Everett at St. Ed's, brother Jerome. So many people were there for me, and I had no idea.
And it occurs to me then that that was a calling for those people as well. Thank goodness that they were in the career of being a teacher or a coach, the way that teachers and coaches can influence us in so many ways. And so is it true that you didn't even though show up for your high school graduation?
Yeah, that was a huge resentment I had, and that's part of the recovery. I mean, you got to be able to let go of all your resentments and regrets. And I was unaware of everything St. Edward did for me, and I'll never forget walking out of that building, June 6th, 1987. I remember taking my tie off after my last final, and I walked backwards out of the building, and I threw my tie into the door and literally raised my middle finger for the school to the school. How disrespectful, how ignorant was I? And I had them mail me my diploma. I got tough love while I was there, and I just totally thumbed my nose at everybody, the administration, my coaches, my teachers, my classmates. And that really burned deep in me for many, many years, after I decided to hit my knees, surrender, and ask the Lord to help me.
And there it is. That's the powerful testimony that it's never too late. It's never too late. It started with Robin Hood Cream Ale Tall Boys at 12. And when
At
was the
7.
it's 7. You're right. 12. The 12 peg was in eighth grade at 14. You're right. 7 years old. So God took it from Robin Wood Cream Ale Tall Boys. At what point was the pivot where you said, I'm serious about getting back on track, walking hand in hand with Christ?
Well, I thought it was after the St. Ignatius game my sophomore year. I had been drinking till about 5 in the morning, came home, crawled in the bed, and I just broke down. And I said, Lord, help me. I said, I can't continue to live like this. And I said, I promise if you help me, I will do the best I can not to pick up a drink on a daily basis. I was good for 2, 3 weeks. We end up winning a playoff game. Party was on after that playoff game. And Don, quite frankly, it was full steam ahead until June 27th of 1993. I woke up that morning and I was sick. I mean, I ended up in the hospital. I was at a friend's wedding the night before. I had blacked out. I blacked out the previous day on Friday at the WMMS Easter Seals golf outing, in which I was, quote, a celebrity participant. And I went to the hospital. I busted up my hand. And when I got home from the hospital, I asked somebody I work with to help me. And that person, who will remain anonymous, agreed, gave me a little big book. And from there, we started working the steps.
And those steps are such great steps for anyone. Truly, they really are. Whatever you're up against. But I want to throw a quote up that I live by. There are a couple, not a quote, but a Bible verse here. It's Romans 8:28 right here. In all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. All things. Like Paul didn't mince words, did he, Carmen?
No.
All things. Even those moments in your bed where you're like, God, I'm broken, or we're crying out. Like, this is when the scripture, for me, it's living word. It's the living word for you. Do you find that's been the case for you as well?
Well, yeah, and it starts, day one, step one, when I hit my knees and surrendered. Dawn, I didn't do this. Okay, I mean, yes, I've got 30 years of sobriety behind me, but all I have is right now, as I'm speaking to you, as we like to say, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. But I didn't do this. I mean, this is divine intervention. This is divine providence. The people that have been, put around me over the last 30 years to help me stay on this path. The only thing I did was welcome the Lord and welcome his life-saving help.
And there it is. And I know that there are people who are listening to this who, I have goosebumps, myself included. I'll start right here, who need to hear that from someone who is the real deal warrior.
I don't know. You know what? I mean, warrior, that should not be applicable. I am not a warrior. I mean,
you did through
maybe
your
you
own
can call me
thing.
God's warrior. I'm a warrior
Yeah,
for
but I
God.
mean, we all have our thing. And you know what? Someone once said to me that don't stop saying, oh, it could be worse. It could, but our things are our things. These are our things. And it's encouraging when you're listening, whatever you're up to, whoever's listening to this, whatever you're faced with, here is encouragement. It's encouragement from a real deal human being friend, working in the broadcast news business, who made a decision to be transparent about your story. So I hope if people are listening that they're inspired in that same vein. And when you talked about yesterday as history, look, this was the other one I was going to show. Look at this one. And we know, oh, wait, one moment, please. Let's see if it'll show this one. It says, no, dear brothers. There it is. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it. Paul again. But I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past. It's so huge. Sometimes people have forgiven us a long time before we've forgiven ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that way? Forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Philippians 3:13.
I'm glad you put that up there, because you know why the good Lord put these in the front of our head? To look
Why
forward.
the good Lord, what's that?
Why the good Lord put these eyes in the front of our heads?
Why? Oh, to look forward.
To look forward. Yes.
And Bob Goff, a friend and mentor of mine who doesn't know it yet, I say, he always says there's a reason that the windshield is huge and the rear view mirror is small. How about
That's
that?
right. That's
That
right.
little visual. Yeah. And so when we talk about looking forward to what lies ahead, look, here you are at one of my favorite groups of people. This is just recently, right?
Yeah, that's Challenger. That's the Challenger Baseball League, and it is a bunch of awesome, special young men and women that are dealing with a bunch of issues. And I was able to MC opening day for them about a month and a half ago in Broadview Heights. And my cousin's on the team. She's dealing with some physical issues. And boy, how blessed was I? How blessed was I?
This repurposed life. Thank goodness that you took the next best step. Thank goodness. And I love Brian and Karen Wolf, like what they're
Oh,
doing.
yeah.
You always scratch the surface. Like when we do a good stuff story like yours, inevitably you scratch the surface and there are 100 other stories right beneath it. And that theirs is one. Is
There's
that
my
your,
cousin Gianna. Yep. It's my
Gianna?
cousin Gianna.
See, this is the good stuff. I'm smiling. I'm smiling. I can't stop smiling. And here you are. You have this job. You have some good tenacity in a world of broadcast news that is not easy to hang in. So here you are with the Dolans.
Yeah, we were stuffing the truck for Providence House, a crisis nursery, any household item that folks have in their house. That's exactly what the Providence House needs. And Paul and Karen are on the board there. They're the chairwoman and chairman, and just a great, great couple. So philanthropic, do so much under the radar for charities in Greater Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, and certainly the Providence House is near and dear to their hearts. And I believe that was the 9th of June. So yeah, that was 3 weeks ago today.
Wow. Right. And we say, see the good, be the good. That's what y'all are doing. That's what y'all are doing. And it's because it's because you took the first step. So this is how, when you take the next best step and you follow take the best step and you follow, never alone, but with God. Look at your incredible life and the potential that you have to be the hands and feet of Christ, because you're blessed with a public role.
Yeah, you showed that picture of Bloom Daddy and I, and that was before Game 5 of the Cavaliers series against the Knicks. There we are, broadcasting courtside before the game, and we were courtside up until I think 32 minutes before the opening tip-off. And had you asked me, 35 years ago if I would have been in a position to do that, I mean, Dawn, as you know, we are so blessed in this business. I never take a day for granted with what I do. But if you would have asked me 35 years ago that picture would be taken, I would have told you absolutely no way. Absolutely no way.
Exactly. And again, for people who are listening and they're conflicted, like, what is my worth? What is my value? We would both, I think I can speak for you, Carmen, we would submit that you don't know your value right now, what the potential that God has to work all things for good through you. It's true. It's really true. And it's hard to understand when you're in the thick of it. But as I see you, here you are. Again, I'm going to put this picture back up. Providence House doing great things. Here you are with the owners of the Guardians. I mean, you're keeping pretty good company. And
I
it's
guess.
it's because that God has this plan, like we could never foresee it. And I'm so glad that you're able to share that story from the position that you're in behind the microphone, and sharing your story, not just your career, but yeah, you feel the same way?
Absolutely. And, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the interview, but, all of us, when we're in recovery, whether you got 1 hour, 1 day, 1 year, or 40 years, 50 years, you got to give it away to continue to get it back. And I will do anything I can, whether, someone is in the throes of addiction or alcoholism, or to be out in the community and doing things with Challenger, doing things with the Dolans and Providence House, doing things with the Ed Keating Center. It's a nonprofit recovery home for men who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. I sit on the board there. I will do anything I can because there were so many people that were there for me in my darkest days, Dawn.
And it's not lost. I mean, that high school athlete who's had such a passion since day one for Cleveland sports. How about this one that I found? How about this final one? I promise. We can
All right.
rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. like endurance athletes. Katie Spots, we interviewed just recently.
Oh yeah.
Remember? Yeah, she's so great. I'll send you the link. She's amazing. In endurance, not, the kind of the comparison that we could make in any kind of athlete has to build endurance. And that's what we do on our knees, basically, the endurance to see the good and to be the good. And we're never on our own, really and truly.
To build that endurance, I'm glad you said that or phrased it that way, because I mean, number one, I hit my knees every morning and before I go to bed every night, and praying and going to meetings. That's kind of like, I guess, to correlate it with an athlete getting in the weight room, or running Stinchcomb, and just continually getting in better and better shape. For me, that's the correlation I can make. And at the end of the day, you talked about those that might be kind of down in the dumps, and might be questioning things, might be questioning their worth. Everybody is worthy. I mean, at the end of the day, Don, we have the ability, if we want it, to go from underdogs to wonder dogs. Let's go.
I love that. DAWGS we'll go with. Dogs
Okay.
from Cleveland.
Underdogs to wonder dogs.
That's great. I love that. And here's what I keep thinking. Historically, the Bible is full of examples of how God works through the broken. He does. He's shown us that he doesn't go when you're like, hey, everything's great. This is not when he does his greatest things. It's so almost to see privilege. Woo, it sounds so cliche to say. I can almost feel people listening saying, oh, whatever, pie in the sky, happy. But to find the privilege in the pain. And it's a mindset, and you are proof. I'm proof. For me, my really God really was when the contract wasn't renewed at Broadcast News after 22 years. I was like, really, God, really? Inevitably, it turns out to be really, God, like to take inventory of what role I played on my own there and not being renewed, and was it my heart the whole time going? Philippians 4:6 says, be anxious for nothing, but in all things with prayer and with supplication and with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, bigger than anything we could imagine. And here's the important part, will protect your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. Paul didn't say will protect you through Christ Jesus. It's fewer words. I think he knew, don't you, Carmen, that our hearts and our minds are so totally different. My mind said, you better keep your nose to the grindstone. This place is a blessing. It still is. It still is. And had proven to be such a blessing. But my heart was going, nope. And lo and behold, of course, I would have renewed that contract. It's the only thing I've ever done. What else are you going to do? All these things. Sometimes God makes it so that you can, he can move you right out of your own way. And then how do we end up using the really God really to figure out really God really? And the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you, telling a good stuff story in which we can talk so freely about our faith. Really, God, really, like there it is. So that's what we submit. Anyone listening, I would say, if you're feeling broken, congratulations. This is it. This is where you can hit your knees and watch how he puts you back together in ways that you couldn't even imagine. You agree with me, my friend?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Again, it goes back to, someone's out there feeling broken, you feel like you're the underdog, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. You can become a wonder dog. I count my blessings, not my problems on a daily basis. I'm so grateful for what I have. And, it's because of him. I mean, good things don't happen by accident, Don.
Yes. We call it divine design, not mine. Divine
awesome.
Design, not mine. And again, let's be clear as we begin to wrap this up. Let's be clear that we're not always like skipping through life. No, daily. Sometimes I'm like, really, God, really? Okay. But each step that I take, I realize how to process that. How are you going to work this for good? Romans 8:28. He can, he does. Both of us are living proof. To wrap this up, I texted you, and if this is putting you on the spot, no worries. But if you, it occurs to me the very thing that we reconnected over was a post. Again, social media, guess what? Can be used for good. And
Yes.
this is what you wrote. Would you be willing to take us out by reading again? We've walked through the journey, and here we are today, that you can stand confidently. I get chills even thinking about it, and you can post a post like this. Praise God how he's working in you. Would you be willing to read it?
Absolutely, but Todd, you give me far, far too much credit. I thank you for your kind, loving words, but you give me far too much credit. And you know what? This is as genuine as it comes and as it could be. This was June 27th. What was that? Tuesday? And it's simply, this was a post on Facebook. It simply reads, "Today marks a very bittersweet day in my life. It was June 27th, 1993, that I dropped to my knees and surrendered. My use of alcohol had taken me to the darkest place in my life at the age of 24, and I humbly asked the Lord to get me through the day sober. I just couldn't keep living such a harmful, irresponsible lifestyle. I successfully stayed sober June 27th, 1993, and since that day, I have said no to booze. June 27th also marks a horrific day in my life, as it is the day my best friend, my brother Gino, died suddenly at his Arizona home, June 27th, 1999. Some may believe today is a sad day for me. I continue to view it differently. For the last 6 years of his life, my older brother Gino saw his punk little brother heal on a daily basis. That, folks, is a blessing. I never thought that I could stay sober for a day, let alone a month, let alone 30 years. And to know my brother proudly watched me do the right thing the years leading up to his death makes me beyond grateful. It really is unbelievable. Good things in life don't happen by accident. And with God on my hip and the best support group on this planet, along with my brother's enduring memory, I cannot lose. Because of sobriety, I was able to marry the two loves of my life, be a faithful husband, and I would like to think an even better father to my awesome children, Samantha, Gina, Colin, and Annie. Sorry for the Tom Clancy novel-length post, but today is just one of those special days. Love to all, Nucci. Nucci is my Italian nickname. And there's my daughter, Gina. Thank you so much for that picture.
All of this brought to you by God, as you said. It's all this story brought to you by. And so thank you. Thank you, my friend. Is there anything else that you want to add at all before we wrap this up?
You know what? Just don't let your faith waver. I tell this to kids I talk to with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes at St. Ed's. No matter how bad things may be going in your life, don't let your faith waver. If you're praying and you think the Lord's not answering your prayers, pray harder. Let's go. Good things will happen. Good things will happen.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Now I feel like we could do another half hour. I mean, aren't they so great? They're doing such great things. Nobles Darby the Fourth, with the Cavs, and he's kicking butt for the kingdom. Kicking butt for the kingdom. We should make that a hashtag. All right.
Absolutely, dear.
God bless you, my friend. And, thank you for being an example of seeing the good and being the good. If you're listening, you can do the same. And remember that we're in it together. Together we can, together we will. So on your marks, get set. Let's go. God bless you. This has been a Grassroots Good Stuff family production. Big love and gratitude to our friend Carlos Jones, who is the talented voice and creator behind this music that sets the tone for these good stuff stories. Huge gratitude and love as well for our social media director. She is Danielle Folk and is consistently going above and beyond. Follow her at Farmhouse Storyteller. And to the producer, My Travi, the glue that holds together the moving parts of this God-inspired endeavor. TheGoodStuffFamily.com is where you'll find links for all the things we're doing, including how to be a sponsor of a story. So grateful for our faithful sponsors who have already made so much of what we do possible. And of course, big love and gratitude for you, the listeners, helping to grow this Good Stuff family tree 2023. Welcome to the family.